Summer 1968 was supposed to be like any other for the Miller family. John and Mary Miller, along with their two children, 10-year-old Sarah and 7-year-old David, were preparing for what was meant to be a fun, relaxing hiking trip through the rolling hills of the Appalachian Mountains. The air was warm, the skies were clear, and the trail they were taking was one that had been hiked by many before them. It was a popular route, with breathtaking views of the dense forest, rocky terrain, and the winding rivers that stretched. For miles, John, a well-seasoned hiker, had mapped out their path, and Mary, a nature enthusiast, was excited to introduce the kids to the wonders of the wilderness. Sarah, full of curiosity, and David, with his infectious laughter, were eager for the adventure ahead. It was a family bonding trip, one that would mark another chapter in their close-knit lives. The Millers began their journey on a bright morning, backpacks loaded with snacks, water, and camping gear. As they trekked along the trail, they chatted, laughed, and marveled at the beauty of the mountains around them. To the outside world, they appeared like any other family on a summer getaway, carefree, and in love with the world around them. Their excitement was palpable, and no one had any reason to think that anything could go wrong. But by the end of that fateful day, things would change forever. The last known sighting of the Miller family was at a familiar campsite just off the main trail. The sun was beginning to set, casting an orange glow over the trees. It wasn't unusual for families to camp here, and it was clear that the Millers had planned to spend the night. However, no one would ever see them leave. No one would ever know what happened to them next. By the time other hikers came through the same trail the next morning, the Millers were gone. Their tent, the fire pit, and their gear were all left behind in disarray. The only thing that was certain was that the family had vanished without a trace, leaving only a growing sense of unease in the air. When authorities arrived, the scene at the Miller campsite was nothing short of baffling. A few scattered belongings, a picnic basket, a couple of toys, a half-finished map, were found, as if the family had planned a peaceful retreat, but something had interrupted them. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no footprints leading off the trail. It was as if they had simply vanished into the wilderness. The note that was discovered near their campsite was the first strange clue. It was short and vague, written on a crumpled piece of paper. The words, "We're going to explore further up the trail. Be back soon. Don't worry about us," seemed to suggest the family had changed their plans last minute. But why leave everything behind in such a hurry? Immediately, a large-scale search effort began. Helicopters scoured the skies, volunteers combed through the dense woods, and local authorities enlisted the help of tracking dogs. For weeks, the search grew more desperate. Every inch of the trail was examined, but there was no sign of the Millers. No footprints, no clues, no trace. They had seemingly vanished into thin air as the weeks turned into months. The search began to dwindle. With no new leads and no answers, the case went cold. What had happened to this seemingly normal family, who had set out on what was supposed to be a peaceful hike, was a mystery that no one could solve. As years passed, the disappearance of the Miller family became more of a local legend than an unsolved case. People would whisper about the vanishing family around campfires, or warn their children to stay on the main trails when hiking in the Appalachian Mountains. The mystery of the Millers was one that gripped the small community, a story that felt as eerie as it was tragic. Locals speculated about what could have happened: wild animals, an unexpected accident, or perhaps a more sinister explanation. Some even hinted at the possibility of foul play. But without evidence, the case remained an enigma. Families that visited the area would often stop by the site, curious about what had happened to the Millers, but no one had any real answers for the family and friends of the Millers. However, the pain never faded. Their absence was a hole that no amount of time could fill. Their loved ones held out hope, year after year, that someday, somehow, someone would find the answers they so desperately needed. John and Mary's parents grew old, their hearts aching with the questions that would never be answered. Sarah and David's friends moved on, but there was always an empty space left in their lives. The unanswered questions became a weight too heavy to bear. How could a family of 4 just disappear without a trace? And why had they left behind so many clues, yet so little explanation? It wasn't until 2025 that the case would take an unexpected turn. Advances in forensic technology combined with the persistence of a new generation of investigators, brought the Millers' story back into the spotlight. Forensic teams began to re-examine the old evidence, clothing, photographs, and a single lock of hair that had been found at the campsite. Then, something extraordinary happened. That a breakthrough came in the form of an old photograph. It was taken at a local diner just a few days before the Millers disappeared. A sharp-eyed investigator noticed something strange in the background, a figure standing near the diner, staring intently at the Millers. It was a blurry image, but it was enough to raise suspicions. Who was this person? And why had they been watching the family so intently? Along with the photograph, a long-forgotten witness came forward, an elderly man who had been camping nearby on the same trail that weekend. He hadn't come forward earlier, thinking his information wasn't important, but now, he claimed he had seen someone unusual, watching the Millers as they set up camp. The man couldn't describe him well, but he remembered seeing the figure lurking in the shadows, and a cold chill ran down his spine. Then, DNA testing on the hair, found at the campsite, yielded a match, a distant relative of the Millers. The connection was tenuous, but it was enough to suggest that someone, perhaps even a family member, had been in the area shortly before the Millers vanished. This small piece of the puzzle was enough to reopen the case, bringing fresh hope to those who had never stopped believing. With the reopening of the case, investigators began exploring new theories. Had the family been abducted? Were they involved in some kind of criminal activity? Or had they simply gotten lost in the wilderness? New search efforts were launched, this time with more advanced technology, including drones and infrared imaging. The possibility of foul play, long discounted, was now back on the table. Was the mysterious figure in the photograph somehow connected to their disappearance? Did the new witness have more information than he initially realized? And could the DNA match lead to a new suspect, one who had been hiding in plain sight? All along, while investigators continued to pursue leads, the new evidence raised more questions than answers. The photograph, the DNA, and the eyewitness testimony only pointed to more unanswered mysteries. But with each new revelation, the pieces of the puzzle began to fit together in strange and unexpected ways. For the Millers' surviving relatives, this reopening of the case brought a glimmer of hope that had long been extinguished. Their quest for answers wasn't over. The trail may have gone cold in 1968, but the spirit of the Miller family and the love their loved ones held for them would never fade. And so, the search continued. The search for the truth, the search for closure, and above all, the search for the family that had vanished so long ago. The mystery of the Miller family remains unsolved, but as new clues continue to surface, there is renewed hope that the truth will one day emerge. Their story is a reminder that even in the face of overwhelming silence, the quest for answers never truly ends.